Right, we will begin. Why do Gemaras start with Daf Beis? So the general accepted answer is that the earlier prints, the numbers, pages were numbered from the first page printed in the book, and the Sharblat, the front page, was called Daf Aleph. Therefore, the first page of actual Gemara was called Daf Beis. The Rebbe mentions this in the Sikha as well, this concept. There's other Al Derech Hadrush, people say that when you start the Gemara, you always have to know that there's Akdamis for the Gemara, that the Gemara is the base. First you have to have the Chodgel HaTorah, you have to have Yerosei Kedemis L'Chachmosei, and so on. The Poshet, the Pshat is what we said. Did the Rebbe say about himself that he is a Navi sent by Hashem? So, the Rebbe, as far as I know, never said the words clearly, I am a Navi sent by Hashem. But the Rebbe said clearly that there is a Navi in our generation, and the Rebbe had many remozim, many hints that he is the Navi that he's talking about, and therefore, by many Chassidim, the answer would simply be yes. The Rebbe said that about himself, even though you could argue that it wasn't clearly. But a lot of times, when I ask you what time it is, and they'll say now it's 5 plus 3, so you know it's 8 o'clock. So did I say it clearly it's 8 o'clock, or I just? You can argue about that. So did the Rebbe say it? The Pashtus, yes. The Rebbe said he's a Navi. The Rebbe said clearly, is there room to argue? If you want to be an action, you probably could argue. You'll have a very hard time with the Sikhs to argue with it. But you might be able to make an argument that the Rebbe didn't say so. But you'll have to argue a lot of arguments to prove your point. Yeah?
Give me dollars and talking about that.
Oh, so Shneur Lerner told me that the Rebbe says there's a video by dollars, but the Rebbe clearly says he's not a prophet. Sure? But that's dollars, and this is a Sikha that I think was later. The Sikha was Shreiftim and Aleph, I imagine was after those, after you have to look at the sources. I know that the Rebbe once told my grandfather, that my grandfather told the Rebbe that people are saying the Rebbe is Mashiach, and the Rebbe said I wasn't told. Yeah. So it could be that the Rebbe wasn't told yet, and later he was told. And Al Derech is over here, it could be at that point the Rebbe said he wasn't a prophet, that's what he meant that, and then later on, he was told that Hashem did speak to him. These are all speculations. Yeah?
Or I'm saying don't tell people multiple times.
Multiple times?
No, you say I'm giving over Hashem's message. You. Giving over
that, yeah, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's saying that he's a prophet. Giving over Hashem's message is any yid that's teaching Torah is giving over Hashem's message.
Right, but it's irrelevant as long as I'm saying over Hashem's word.
If I teach you about the Pasuk in Chumash, I'm giving you Hashem's message. No, that's not an ayah enough.
Explicitly that I'm giving over.
I'm giving over Hashem's message to the world. So Abishur says that Eretz Yisrael is the safest place. So by saying that, I'm giving over Hashem's message. Again, the pashtus, yes, but you can argue if you want. I guess you'll have a hard time making an argument. But so, in short, the answer is yes. The Rebbe said that, but if you want, you can argue.
You give one of the Muslims, so there's a lot.
There's a person in our generation, a Nasi Adoy, and the Rebbe said Nasi Shmei, Nachem Shmei, whatever. It's endless. The Remozim. It's more than a Remozim. There's like a Remez, and there's like right now it's 5 plus 3. That's a Remez. It's good luck. How did it work on Pesach with the Lechem Aponim? Who knows the answer? The Lechem Aponim was not Chometz. The Lechem Aponim was matzah also. It was flour mixed with water, but it was not allowed to rise. But in the Beis Hamikdash, there were no korbanos that were made out of chometz besides shvuos, shtei alechem. So it's lechem aponim and shtei alechem. So lechem aponim was on every Shabbos. That was not made out of. It was not made into chometz. The shtei alechem was chometz, but that was not on the mizbeach. In any event, in Pesach there was no chometz in the mizbeach, just like everywhere else. Hey, Levi's still not here. Why do we sing the Nigun Achona before the Alter Rebbe's Nigun, the Dalet Bavis? So it's the Pashtus. I don't know when it started, but the Pashtus, the Nigun Achona is the Nigun of the Rebbe Rashab. And the Rebbe Rashab, one time after the Chassidim sang the Nigun, the Rebbe Rashab said this Nigun is the Inyan Shaykhis to Chassidus. So and the Rebbe Rashab rightly said a Maimer. So the Pashtus, it's a very special Nigun. And I wasn't able to find out the history of when it began, but Mashman Dei Rashvi, throughout the generations, when the Rebbe would say to sing the Aleph Bavis, the Rebbe would first say to sing the Nigun as Achona. The Pashtus, it picks you up in a higher mode in order to get to the Nigun of the Aleph Bavis, which is obviously a very famous Nigun, and is a very, very special Nigun. What can you practically do to help focus on learning? So I heard a story once. I heard this with a name. I'll say the name even though it's not. I don't know for sure. The guy's name is Stern. Involved in Shmira or Shemrim in Crown Heights. Anybody? Shmira or Shemrim? Shmira. So I heard a story about him, but it could be it didn't happen with him. It could be it didn't happen with Bechlal. This is how I heard the story. That he was a Bacher in 770 or in Yeshiva, wherever he was. He had a very hard time practically focusing on learning, and he didn't have no interest, and it was very hard for him. So he asked the Rebbe for advice. So the Rebbe told him, the advice is every day to learn for only 5 minutes. You're not allowed to learn more than 5 minutes. Can you do that? So, sure, 5 minutes. And without a guilty conscience, just 5 minutes a day, sure. So he came at the Zal the next day and he randomly opened up a Chumash. 5 minutes he started reading Chumash, Bashash Bereshis. I guess he didn't really learn too much in the past, but he was able to learn Chumash. And after 5 minutes of learning, it was in the middle of something. But he promised the Rebbe not more than 5 minutes. So he had to close this Chumash. This went on for a few days, and after a few days, that's where I heard the story. He asked the Rebbe permission to learn more than 5 minutes. So the Rebbe smiled and said, yeah. So that's one eitzah, but the same concept. To help you focus practically, I would think is to say, do it at 5 minutes at a time. Make yourself a cheshbon, and no matter what, you're not going over 5 minutes, even if it's geschmack. And then close after 5 minutes, and then come back another while later and do another 5 minutes. It's not to be 5 minutes a day. It could be more than 5 minutes. It could be 10 times 5 minutes throughout the day. And then every time you get to that point, and it's hopefully give you more geschmack and focusing on the learning. Some people, when it comes to problems in focus, it's something medically. There's a famous thing called Ritalin, and a lot of Bachrim have a stigma. There are many Bachrim that take it. There are many teachers that should be taking it. But everyone knows the famous story, the joke, right? Everyone knows the joke with the coffee, yeah? No. Everyone knows the joke. No. You don't know the joke? Come on. Everyone knows the joke. Yeah? No point repeating it. No.
Never the joke.
You know the joke.
What joke?
In the short, there was a kid that was misbehaving in class, and the teacher had issues with him. He spoke to his parents, and his parents said, because he can't focus. I'm telling you, the teacher said that the teacher told the parents, I'm telling you, this kid must take Ritalin because he can't focus. So after a while, the parents finally took him to a professional, and they got the prescription. Sure. But the kid's still misbehaving in class the whole time. So the parents, the teacher told the parents what's going on. So the parents say, we forget to give it to him every morning. We're rushing all the kids to school, we have no time. So the teacher said, it's so bad, I'm willing to take care of it. So what are we going to do? So I come to school, I'll tell him to take it right then. No, I can't embarrass him in front of all the kids. I have an idea. Every day I'll tell him to go make me a coffee, and at the same time I'll be his hint. I'll remind him about the riddle. Sure. And that was the seder. Every day the kid went, and he made a coffee, and he came back. And sure enough, a week later, the teacher tells the parents, that it's working amazing, the kid's so much more behaved in class. You know the punchline already, right? You can imagine the punchline. So we're going to skip. All right. So that's another eitzah to help us to focus on learning. But obviously, you don't take Ritalin on your own. You take Ritalin only with a doctor if someone has a real issue, and it's not a busha. There are many successful people that do it. There's nothing wrong with it, but you can't just take it randomly on your own. You have to have someone, a mumcha, telling you that indeed you need it. But if it's not a medical issue, which I think by most Baruchim probably just a little bit of more focusing than the eitzah we said before. Why do you think Baruchim should get married at 18? This question doesn't stop. I think so because first of all the Rebbe says so. There's letters of the Rebbe where the Rebbe clearly says halavai that the Ashkenazim should learn from the Sfardim to get married at a younger age. And I think that the reason why the Rebbe said so is because the younger a person gets married, the less avidus he does, and the more geschmack he has afterwards when he goes on in life. I have a friend of mine that told me that Hillel Parisher was known to be one of the biggest chassidim. Ad kedei kach that he was called the Rebbe. They said that Tzemach Tzedek had 2.5 chassidim. The half chassid was a Hillel Parisher. Why was he a half chassid? Because it was half Rebbe. Very, very holy Jew. So my friend told me, you know why Rebbe Hillel Parisher was so great? Because he got married when he was 12 years old. That's why he never had issues. So Mamela, that's a very, very important factor of it. It's also an important factor. The older you get, the more you die out, the more you lose your chayes, as they say there. Every step, especially after yeshiva, kind of structure, every year is get more involved in Elam Hazeh. So Mamela, the younger you are, the more chayes you have. You can take all that chayes and make it dinner b'tachtin if it's dark society.
The Rebbe also told many people not to get married and to wait.
I don't know such a thing. The Rebbe told parents not to pressure their children to get married earlier.
I heard stories recently where the Rebbe said that they should wait till later on.
I don't. There were times where the people that asked her brachas and the Rebbe didn't answer them.
No, I'm saying they were engaged by 18 and that's the Rebbe they should get married. The Rebbe said to wait a little bit.
Oh, between the engagement and the marriage, that was the earlier years. And the Rebbe,
No, sorry, before they got engaged, right, they asked the Rebbe, like...
okay, I'm not what you're referring to. I'm telling you what I understand. That's the way. Because you have your shit, you know everything.
The individual
I'm doing the Q&A right now. When you do Q&A, you'll do your things, but you know what the Rebbe says.
It's still in yeshiva though. It's still. I'm saying you're assuming that they're not in yeshiva. This question.
Even a bacher in yeshiva would do better to get married. Yes, I stand by what I'm saying. I'm not embarrassed to say it, but I think that bachrim that are
So it's
18,
better to be out of yeshiva. I'm saying you're saying
you get married now, get married and you're 18, 19, and then you'll be able to make a deal with Tachtonim. It also means Mashiach quicker. It says, in ben David ba Ashich l'Neshamis ben Aguf. It's another way of bringing Mashiach, having children. So Adara, yeah.
Isn't it better to be in yeshiva a couple more years? So there's a lot of things for a bacher to cover.
You can get married. The Rebbe says in Shulchan Aruch that the first 2 years after you get married, you can learn better than as a bacher.
what?
The Rebbe says in Shulchan Aruch that the first 2 years after you get married, you can learn better than you learn as a bacher.
There's more distraction. Those.
Huh?
More distraction.
Not the first 2 years after you get married. First, the Rebbe says in Shulchan Aruch.
Yeah, but like, you need to go to the world, you need to go work, you need to...
Ain't not over the side. You can sit in yeshiva for 50 years and still not be ready to learn everything. What do you mean? You learn, you get married, you learn better.
You for sure have more structure in yeshiva.
Huh?
Then you for sure have more structure in yeshiva than when you get married.
You get married, you go to Koil. You go to Koil, you go every morning, I guess, 6 in the morning.
You go to Koil.
Huh?
Everyone goes to Koil.
If you get married at 25, no. If you get married at 18, 19, then don't worry. You can go for 3 years also. It'll be okay.
Even if you're not like your foundations aren't like you can't like you're reading or like reading so
The person says, I want to learn smicha before I get married, then yeah, it makes sense. But the Rebbe said not to push it off because of smicha either. The Rebbe said a person gets smicha before marriage, but not to push it off.
I thought that ever said exactly she gets before you get married.
Right, and at the same time he said not to push off the marriage because of the first one. Huh?
because you can't open up a Gemara like a mimer to start learning.
So it makes sense for a person to say, I'm waiting to do a certain thing, and then I'm going to look in Shulchan. I want to learn enough Gemara on my own, which make a plan. It should take me another 5-6 months, whatever it is, and then afterwards I'm ready to look in the Shulchan. Yeah, that makes sense. You want a certain thing? Huh?
We're getting married tomorrow, Rabbi.
Yeah, you already did.
Yeah.
Oh, fine. You said it.
Yeshiva, Rabbi, and just all get married? Everyone that's 18 leave Yeshiva? Just get out?
You have to leave Yeshiva, get married in Yeshiva. Get married and stay in Koil afterwards. Huh? No. I don't teach seminary. I teach over here. If that's my opinion, I'll tell my opinion also. I think this is the Rebbe's Kav. I think the Rebbe's Shita. I think that's what Shulchan should be doing. Huh?
You didn't say your opinion.
Huh? I see letters like that, and I understand that is what I'm saying is better. There's letters like this, letters like that. This is my understanding.
The Rabbi clearly said this.
There's letters of the Rebbe clearly says, Halavai, Ashkenazim, Shalom from the Sfardim, you get married at a younger age, as opposed to a lot of the